Hi, I'm Clayton Durham with Word Rock Drills, and this is our skid steer attachment, the SS57. It requires at least 20 GPM of flow at 3000 PSI and hooks up like a regular implement, like a bucket. So let's check it out. So before we hook up, let's go over a couple of things. Let me show you. First thing you want to do is check the chain tension. You want to be able to pull the chain up about an inch or two, but you don't want like a ton of slop where you're picking it up a lot. So in order to tighten the chain, you remove this strap and the tension nuts underneath. Tighten it to tighten the chain. Now make sure you grease all your zerks before you operate the machine. The most important is the idler sprocket. You're going to grease it twice a day if you're using the machine. And then you also have slides up and down the mast. This helps lubricate the mast. You have one zerk back here on the back of the swivel. If any of the marks have shifted, then just check your Torx. We have nylon pads that mount underneath the motor to slide up and down the mast. Check these daily to see if they're worn out. Before starting the machine, check your oil level on the skid steer and your fuel level inside the cab. Now that we've inspected the machine, now it's time to hook up. Make sure when you hook up that your pins are engaged to lock it into place. All of our units have 3 different hydraulic lines that are being used. You have your return line, which is normally labeled blue. You have a case drain, which is normally labeled yellow, and a supply, which is normally labeled red. Now, what we do on our machines is the case drain, we plug in first. Be sure to bleed off any hydraulics on the skid steer attachment itself to cut back any sort of resistance you put on your lines. Then we'll plug in the return. There's resistance on that, so let me show you a trick. The reason why you plug in the case drain first is what you'll do if there's resistance on your lines is pull this red knob to bleed off hydraulic pressure built up behind the quick connects to the tank of the skid steer. So pull this and then plug in the rest. And then you plug in your supply. If you forget to plug in your case drain or your return and send oil to the machine, you could damage the valve bank. So make sure that all 3 are plugged in before you send oil. What you want to see is the oil pressure spike if oil's going in the correct direction. If you don't get any movement out of the needle, you're going to have to swap the quick connects on your auxiliary, or at least figure out how to get flow going the correct direction. Rev it up. Perfect. Okay. Now we're ready to go over the controls of the machine. You have rotation, which is the rotation of the drill head. You have feed, which is the drill head moving up and down the mast. You have lift, which is positioning the mast left and right. You have feed extension, which is jamming the mast into the ground or picking it up. And auxiliary on this one is set up for mist pump or dust suppression. So, rotation, you would pull the lever down, and that's always going to be your drilling rotation, as to not break your drill still. The knob right here works according to the lever going down. So as you pull the lever down, you can adjust the torque output with the knob that says rotation. If I back the knob off, it'll cut back the torque output given to the head. That only affects your lever going down, your drilling rotation. Your breakout rotation is pulling your lever up, and that's to break your threads. Your feed lever, if you pull down, the drill head will go down. By backing your knob off, will decrease the feed pressure going into the ground. If you go up, the knob doesn't affect it. So when you're drilling, what you want is to have the right RPM output according to what size bit you have, or for your augers, just how much RPM you need. You'll set your torque output, and this lever is detented, so you'll leave it where it'll stay, and then your feed, you'll basically just pull down on the lever to jam it into the ground. Common drilling technique is to have your RPM set where they need to be, the correct torque output, and feed constantly into the ground without picking up your mast. So you want to have constant feed pressure down, but don't pick up the mast or else you won't have a straight hole. So if you are drilling with air, this is your air control valve. It's just a ball valve. Your main air input would be right here. So if you're using a down the hole hammer, if you're flushing with water, anything that requires something to go through the drill stem, your control's here. So basically, open the valve, it allows your air or water to travel down the hole. To activate the mist pump on your system, you can either use it for dust suppression if there's way too much dust and you're injecting water, or you can use it as a pressure washer. You pull the lever down. I don't have water going to it right now, so you don't really want to activate it without water going to it, or else you'll burn out the pump. You'll pull the lever down, and you're just fine-tuning the amount of oil going to the pump to activate it, and then your water adjustment itself is right here. To add water to it, this is your main water input, and it travels all the way through the system and will put it down the hole. If you want to use a pressure washer, you pull this valve out, plug in your wand right here, activate your hydraulics, and then just start spraying the machine. Oil lubrication for it, you would be using one of our line oilers. To fill the line oiler, you take off the cap. Normally you would need a wrench, but this one's loose. Add the oil into it with rock drill oil. Put the cap back in and tighten it. Before you take the cap on and off, relieve the pressure. There's a pressure relief on the cap itself. This is a sight gauge so you can see how much oil is in it. To control the oil output, there's a dial on the bottom. Relieve the pressure at the end of the day, or else all of the oil that's inside your canister will blow out the very next day the first time you use it. If you want more information, check out our website, wordrockdrills.com, or call us at 336-584-6700.